Chapter 3, Altered Eyes. Year, 2000. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The calendar turned without apocalypse. The light stayed on. The world sighed in relief. But deep in the folds of horse-drawn quiet, amidst cornfields and churches, under a sky that looked too peaceful to lie, something was born. And the ghouls knew. They felt it ripple through the network, through the feeding ledgers, through the genealogical black books that only 3 families in America still maintained by hand. Not just a birth, not just another Eshelman, but a problem. Because he was a ghoul. But he wasn't like them. It wasn't the teeth. They came in sharp, early, clean. Doctors said developmental anomaly and scheduled nothing. The family never asked again. It wasn't the hunger, either. That came like it always does. Quiet. Painless. A stillborn lamb in the barn that went missing overnight. A class pet that vanished without a trace. The adults understood. Whispered. Logged it. What scared them wasn't what he was. It was how quickly he realized. He knew he wasn't like the others. And he didn't hide. Most young ghouls feel shame, fear, confusion. They wait to be guided, inducted, reined in. Not him. By 7, he was watching the workers. By 10, he was asking questions about where the truckloads went. By 12, he was reading case files he should have never found. He wasn't curious. He was angry. And the Eshelmans tried to course correct. They fed him well. Gave him access. Tried to raise him as a manager, not a rebel. But they saw it in his eyes. That glint. That sense that he wasn't content to feed quietly. That the world wasn't big enough for what was growing inside him. He didn't like the way things were run. Didn't trust the system. Didn't respect the silence. They called it adolescent instability. A phase. Even considered terminating him. But something held them back. Some instinct, some deep marrow-wired fear. What if we don't understand what he is? What if he's not just a ghoul? What if he's something else? He was 13 when it happened. One night, he was gone. Just gone. No sound. No broken window. No trail in the dirt. The sensors planted around the house. Dead. The blood wards. Untouched. The Eshelmans tore the county apart. No announcement. No police report. Just silent panic, dressed in calm smiles and polite door knocks. Because something had gone wrong. And they felt it. For 3 days, no one slept. And then he came back. He walked through the front door just after sunset. No shoes. No scars. No explanation. He looked them in the eyes like he hadn't been gone at all. Like they were the ones who had to answer for something. But he wasn't the same. The eyes, black and red, as all ghouls have when they feed, were now lit from within. Not burning. Not glowing. Radiating. Like something behind them was smiling through him. His blood didn't test the same. It moved like ink in zero gravity. His heart beat once every 10 minutes. And the worst part? He didn't need to eat. They tested him. Pushed him. Starved him. Tried to break the body's rhythms. And still no change. No hunger. No weakness. No decline. He didn't just survive. He stood taller. And his weapons. The claws, the fangs, sure, they were there. But now he could make anything. Anything. From muscle. From air. From the idea of needing it. Knives of bone. Blades of sinew. Lashings that bent physics because they decided not to obey it. There were no rules. Only will. His strength. Measured once at 5 times the baseline of any known ghoul. The scale broke before they could finish the test. His speed. Blurred video. No frame rate could keep up. He crossed 300 yards in under a breath. His knowledge. They found books in his room he shouldn't have been able to read. Some no one should have been able to read. Diagrams of things that hadn't been invented. Languages not recorded. A map of the inside of a scream. And through all of it, he spoke politely. Smiled when spoken to. Stared just a moment too long when someone asked where he'd gone. He didn't lash out. Didn't gloat. He simply began organizing. Asking questions no 13-year-old should ask. Requesting floor plans. Accounting logs. Distribution chains. One Eshelman elder tried to confront him. They were found in the silo the next morning alive, eyes burned clean of memory. Still breathing, but saying nothing but. He showed me the wall. There's writing on the wall. They realized then, this wasn't evolution. It wasn't power. It was something else entirely. Because a ghoul that doesn't need to feed, that doesn't obey hunger, that doesn't feel the pull of the cycle, isn't a ghoul at all. It's a threat to the narrative itself. And worse, he didn't want to destroy anything. He wanted control. Not to liberate. Not to reclaim. But to rewrite. Quietly. Beautifully. Permanently. And somewhere, deep in the bones of Lancaster, something old began to stir. Because the stories that stay buried for a reason. Between the ages of 13 and 16, he didn't conquer Lancaster with violence. He didn't burn it. Didn't scream. Didn't even raise his voice. He bought it. Street by street. Farm by farm. grin by grin. Not with money. Not really. He used fear not as a weapon, but as a currency. The Eshelmans were old, powerful, rooted in every silo, every blood root, every false ledger the county ever whispered into the dark. But when he came back, they stopped speaking above a whisper. Because they saw it the way he looked at the maps on the wall, not as territory to defend, but as puzzle pieces to rearrange. He didn't ask for control. He informed them he had it. He restructured the transport routes, cancelled long-standing agreements with other Ghoul families across state lines, had the audacity to pull from reserved stockpiles without clearance, and no one stopped him. They couldn't. He would enter the old boardroom in the farmhouse basement, where the county's operations had been run for generations, and just stand there. And the room would go quiet. They tried to rally. 3 cousins drew old blood contracts, sacred glyph-sealed bonds designed to challenge lineage dominance. They were found, not dead, but restructured. One now sang to herself in a room lined with salt. Another spoke only in reverse. The third. They buried him. Then he came back 3 days later and started cleaning the house. He called in debts the family forgot they owed, dredged up feeding records from the Civil War and sent them out, stamped with his seal. Dug through old meat quotas and reminded every nearby Ghoul that they were out of balance. He offered terms. Every time worse than the last. And every time, they accepted. He bought silence from the local government with 3 days of rain that shouldn't have come. He bought land by showing farmers photographs of things buried in their fields, photographs that hadn't been taken yet. He bought loyalty from rival branches by promising to keep their names out of what's coming next. By the time he was 16, he owned the county. Not with paper, with atmosphere. The people could feel it. The shadows moved sharper. The churches prayed harder. The animals stared longer. And the ghouls obeyed. Not because he was alpha. Not because he was stronger. But because he wasn't playing the same game anymore. He wasn't managing hunger. He was rewriting power. And everyone, even those who'd once ruled in his bloodline, even those who fed from the same flesh, knew it. By the time he turned 17, he didn't knock anymore. Not on doors. Not on gates. Not on federal walls. He didn't have to. Because by then, they were the ones coming to him. At first, it was subtle. A package from Washington, no return address. Inside, an invitation. Not a request. A sealed folder stamped with sigils known only to upper echelon administrators in the Department of Civil Stability, a department that, on paper, did not exist. It contains satellite imagery of Lancaster, feeding metrics, population rotation estimates, and a letter. You've done more in 4 years than the Eshelmans did in 2 centuries. You've restored balance. Your methods are unconventional, but effective. We believe you're ready for national integration. They didn't come to test him. They came to offer resources. Private trains rerouted to his territory. Black site laboratories moved under his jurisdiction. Whole towns along the Susquehanna quietly rezoned into nutritional development districts. He was 17. He had never filed a tax return, never cast a ballot. But he now oversaw the strategic hunger management protocols for the entire northeastern corridor. They gave him whatever he asked for. Surveillance drones refitted with thermal filtration for tracking non-compliant feeders. Civilian test groups for long-term protein substitution trials. Legal shielding clauses that allowed his agents to conduct nighttime harvest adjustments under emergency biohazard codes. The government didn't just support him. They believed in him. Because the Ghoul Empire wasn't built on conquest. It was built on containment. And he was their proof that the model could evolve. That fear didn't need to be loud. That monsters didn't need to hide, they just needed uniforms. Other families took notice. Some praised. Some protested. He got letters. Veiled threats. Warnings about balance, about tradition, about the old order. He sent nothing back. Except one box to the Bramfords in Georgia. Inside, a cattle tag. Clean. Untouched. They never wrote again. By 17, he didn't run Lancaster anymore. He ran a program. An idea. A methodology. A new template for Ghoul governance. And the real horror? He wasn't trying to destroy the system. He was trying to perfect it. And every time he smiled, every time a town went quiet without a ripple, every time a new file crossed his desk marked Class M, obedient, the world turned just a little more his. Not out of force, not out of loyalty, but because somewhere along the line, everyone started believing his version of the story. 18. The age of adulthood. Of legality. Of inheritance. Of declaration. For most, it meant a name on a ballot. A draft card. A diploma. But for him, it was coronation. There was no crown. No ceremony. No oath. Just a meeting in the old Eshelman farmhouse. Every chair filled. Every elder present. Every rival silenced. No one called him a king. That would imply he could be replaced. No one dared call him a god. That would imply he had followers. Instead, when the final ledger was passed, when the district counts were verified, when the old woman who once chaired the family table wept quietly into her hands, they gave him the only title that fit. The Duke of Lancaster County. Not a title born of tradition. Not one passed by bloodline, but one taken. Forged in fear, silence, and complete submission. They tried to dress it up as symbolic. A nickname. A regional term of endearment. But everyone in the network knew what it meant. A duke doesn't ask. A duke doesn't kneel. A duke doesn't wait. A duke decides. And what he decided, from that day forward, was simple. This land is mine. Every field. Every feeding route. Every silence you've ever counted on. Mine. Federal channels recognized the shift immediately. DC rerouted their internal language. Instead of referring to Lancaster as District Code 36PA, the files were marked. Under Duchy governance, Class Omega stability. He received no limitations. No audits. No oversight. Because the government didn't just tolerate him anymore. They feared disrupting him. Because beneath the surface of protocol and secrecy, every ghoul in power knew one truth. There are systems we create. And then there are systems that wake up inside a boy who disappeared for 3 days, and come back writing rules no one gave him. And the people? They never even knew. They kept living. Kept eating. Kept missing the signs. Because Lancaster didn't burn. It didn't collapse. It thrived. Quiet streets. Low crime. Strong local economy. And every now and then, a family quietly moved away. Never knowing they'd already been measured. 18. And he had everything. The land. The fear. The future. Not because he wanted power, but because he wanted ownership of the narrative itself. And now, there wasn't a single story told in Lancaster that didn't begin and end with him. Everything in Lancaster was perfect. The streets were clean. The crime rate was low. The water ran clear, and the schools posted above average scores every year. Families grew. Churches filled. People waved to one another on porches without realizing their smiles were being measured. No one asked questions. No one wanted to. Because there were no signs anything was wrong. The meat at the grocery store? Cheap, tender, vacuum sealed. The brand changed once, a few years back. New logo, old family recipe. The labels said sourced locally. People felt good about that. The city council? Polite, efficient. Always quick to fix potholes. Always silent about where the homeless shelters went. The hospitals. State of the art. Pediatric wing expanded last year. No one questioned the unusually high turnover rate in ER staff. No one noticed that the morgue wing had no public access. The police? Friendly. Community focused. Their reports were always thin but just thick enough to keep you from looking deeper. Fires happened less often here. The ones that did were contained. And when a house went quiet, when a neighbor's dog barked too long at the basement door, when a child stopped showing up to school and the parents mumbled something about relocation. Everyone nodded. Because Lancaster was peaceful. And peace meant not asking what kept it that way. They didn't know that for decades, they had been fed their own. That every roast, every seasoned cutlet, every low-cost frozen dinner stamped with the county seal had once cried out for help. That the flavors were tested, perfected, and normalized through diet and silence. They didn't know the city council was composed entirely of non-human representatives, appointed by the Department of Civil Stability. Didn't know the State House had a subfloor where votes were fed through blood quotas. They didn't know that federal oversight was just another branch of the kitchen staff. That the briefcase-carrying men who visited twice a year weren't auditors, but menu adjusters. They didn't know that they had never been free. That they had never been citizens. That they were livestock born into comfort. Livestock granted illusion. Given toys and screens and sports leagues and festivals. Because happy cattle taste better. And they never will know. Not under the Duke. He doesn't rule through terror. He doesn't rule through violence. He rules through perfection. Through stillness. Through the soft hum of a machine that feeds without sound. Because under his reign, nothing cracks. No one breaks. Every missing face is catalogued. Every scream is muffled before it starts. Every anomaly is erased before it can echo. And every time someone in Lancaster stares out over the horizon and feels safe, the Duke smiles. Because that feeling, that warmth, that's the cage. And it is locked. And it is lined. And it is delicious.